Deepak,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us on the show, and we wish you all the best with this new venture.
Thank you so much.
On the Investor Eye today, with an aim to fuel India's electric vehicle ecosystem, British International Investment has announced new commitments of $33.5 million. Of the total investment, Everest Fleet and TI Clean Mobility will receive $15 million each, and Vecmocon will secure $3.5 million in equity. The round is part of BII's larger commitment to invest $1 billion in climate mitigation initiatives and green tech innovation in India. Joining me now to discuss this in detail is BII's Green India Mission Managing Director and Head of Technology and Telecoms, Abhinav Sinha. Abhinav, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. You know, first off, like I just said, British International Investment has announced new commitments of $33.5 million to India's EV space, right? If you could take us through why you decided to bet big on India's EV sector and what's the opportunity that you see here?
Sure. Thanks, Chandati. Look, at BII, we have a commitment to invest $1 billion in climate-linked investments between 22 and 26. That's our strategy period. And to date, we've done about 600 million, and so another 400 over the next couple of years. Now, a big part of that investment historically has gone into renewables space, but now the new sector where we are focusing a lot is EVs. And so in this e-mobility space, we've done something close to 350 million to date, and we will continue to do a lot more over the next 2 years. Now, why is this space of interest to us? Two reasons. I mean, one, each electric vehicle, you save anywhere between 2 to 20 tons of carbon over its life cycle, depending on how much you drive it, right? And so, given it's a really scaled up space, and we expect it to go from today's penetration of 6% to maybe 30% by 2030, we think that could be a very significant saving in the carbon footprint for India.
Absolutely, Abhinav. And, you know, you made these three key investments through this fund, which is $15 million in debt financing to Everest Fleet, $15 million in equity investment to TI Clean Mobility, and $3.5 million in equity commitment to Vecmocon. If you could take us through the synergies you see with these firms, and what was the rationale on betting on these specific companies?
Right. No, so if I just take you back, I mean, our big investments in this space have been with the Mahindra's EV a few years back, and you saw them launch that EV a couple of weeks back. And so we've been quite consistently investing across the different parts of the value chain. So we back OEM makers, which is, for instance, in this case, the TI investment, which will make maybe commercial vehicles as well as three-wheelers, as well as potentially tractors in the EV space. We've also been backing component makers because we think that's an important part of the ecosystem. And so our investment in Vecmocon is about these sponsoring these component makers, and they would be making battery chargers, they would be making battery management systems. Now, the usage of electric vehicles in small fleets is again something we're quite bullish on. And our investment in the Everest group is largely to help them acquire electric vehicles for their fleets, which they then let other ride-hailing apps such as Uber access. So eventually, it's all about greater EV penetration in India, and we sponsor or we invest across sectors within that EV space.
And would you look at additional investments into these firms in the future? How will you help them scale their businesses? What's the role that BII will play essentially with these companies?
Absolutely. And, would you look at making additional investments in these firms in the future? And if you could sort of tell us, what is the role that you will play in helping them scale?
Sure. So, Andati, our role is typically to catalyze those parts of the value chain that are more nascent. So there are two spaces that we think are really worth sort of pushing at this stage. One is on the EV financing side. So even today, not a whole lot of finance is available for the full vehicle because banks and others are a bit reluctant to support the entire battery plus the rest of the body of the EV because they don't know how the performance would be, they don't know what will be the salvage value or the value at the end of 3, 5, 7 years. And so we're looking at backing a lot of companies in the whole space of EV financing. Turno is an example where we've backed a a company maybe a few months back.
Yeah.
The other big area that we are really exploring is the whole charging infrastructure.
Right. So those are the two key areas where you're looking to make these investments. But with these new deals, BII's total commitments to the EV sector in India comes up to about $328 million. What are the biggest challenges you foresee in the adoption of EVs across India? And by how much will you increase the portfolio?
Well, let me take the second question first. I think a big part of that 400 million would be in the broader EV space. Okay, and here we would extend it to other parts of it, battery manufacturing, for instance, or those sorts of aspects which haven't seen as much investment in India. So a big chunk of that 400 would be in this space. The challenges that we see, I think. Look, charging infrastructure is a problem. It creates range anxiety. It is something that, some problems of therein can be solved by investors. Others are really utility scale problems that the government and larger utilities need to resolve, and they're looking at it. So I think that's the challenge. I think there is an element of building more capabilities in India, on the battery side, in the battery management systems, in the component side. So the whole ecosystem becomes vibrant. So I see that as a challenge, but something that can be addressed with more investments and more traction.
And, where are your AUMs at currently? What's the growth plan? And how big of a role will India play in your growth story? What's 2025 looking like for the startup ecosystem?
Well, look, I mean, BII has about 10 billion under management, and we typically tend to invest close to 2 billion a year. India is about a fourth of the balance sheet, so close to 2.5 billion is our portfolio value today, and we will continue to be quite active in India with a focus on sustainability and climate investments. India is the single largest important market for us around the world. Now, 2025 has been a good year. I think we've focused on quite a few interesting themes on e-mobility, on broader EV and renewables. We've also had some very good exits, just given how buoyant the markets have been in India. So it's been a good year, and now it's over. So we are thinking of 2026.
Right, Abhinav, many thanks for joining us on the show today and outlining your plans for the next year.